Hello, Yellow Army, and welcome to the latest episode of Inside Plainmoor. As you can see, I'm once again joined by the man himself, Gary Johnson, Torquay United manager. Hi, Gary. How's your week been? Have you been able to see much of the sun in recent days?
Well, you know I have, but I'm not going to mention it. I haven't been away anywhere, but I've just been sort of going around the coastal resorts for a day here and a day there. And we've had our granddaughter for a little while, so we've had to entertain her a little bit. So in between looking at her phone, we've ended up taking her out. She's 12 years old, out and about to a few of the local hotspots. and it really is local.
And it has been particularly hot this week as well, hasn't it? So it's nice to hear that you've been getting out and seeing the local sites then.
Yes, it was nice to, it's obviously nice to get out, and I had a day out with a mother-in-law and the wife and the grandchild. So it's I'm going to need holiday now. But we can't go away, can we? It's one of those things that we've still got to make sure what's happening in the near future. I'm pretty busy at the moment anyway, sort of like crossing the T's and dotting the I's with some players. So it's it was good just to get out and get a bit of fresh air and then come back to business.
Yeah, unfortunately, it won't be. None of us will be going away for anytime soon, because things really are starting to developments are starting to occur at Plainmoor. Now, of course, this week we saw the announcement of the winners of the club's Player of the Season and Young Player of the Season awards. The vote, of course, was held in partnership with the Torbay Weekly. Now, the Yellow Army chose Ben Whitfield as the Player of the Season, and his namesake Ben Winter was named as Young Player of the Season. What are your thoughts on the Yellow Army's decision, Gary? I mean, I guess there's a number of players that could have won either award.
I think there was, and that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. I listened to your interview with the two Bens, and they were obviously very, very pleased, and both alluded to the fact that there would have been a few lads that would have been close to becoming, Player of the Season. Some of them probably didn't get close enough because they didn't play enough games. Others left the club, whether that was a factor in anybody's voting. But I mean, obviously with Ben Whitfield, he was an ever-present. He scored goals, he created goals for us. He's got that enthusiastic way of playing. He's a great kid and all as well. And so I thought that was a very good. I probably would have voted for him myself if I had a vote. So I thought he deserved it. He played in 3 or 4 different positions for us, and every time ran his heart out, and that's what he gives us, along with the ability that he's got. So he'll have another good season this season, I'm sure. And which you don't look at him and see a young player. You see a player that's probably younger than he looks, or certainly in his play, he plays with a bit of experience. The lads respect him. I don't think anybody's ever had a row with him. He's one of those lads that everybody likes. So it's and of course he's a very, very good fullback, and we did miss him while he was out. You only realise how much you miss those types of players when they're out the team. But anyway, he finished the season, and it was unfortunate that we didn't get to finish the last 10 games of the season. But anyway, it was a good vote, very interesting, and 2 worthy winners.
When you're looking at the statistics here, you've got Ben Whitfield, obviously, his versatility and his commitment. He got 7 goals, numerous assists. He was the first to say that he felt it was the best campaign he'd had in professional football. Ben Winter, he's probably one of the unsung heroes of the team, and like you say, shows maturity despite his young age. I mean, he's not even 23 until December, but both clearly popular members with the Yellow Army, and it's great to have them both on board again next season, isn't it?
It is. They were 2 of the ones that signed along with the majority of the group. There was never any sort of doubt in our minds or in their minds that they were going to stay with the club. You know, it's always nice when players have been that consistent that they know that generally, unless it's a real lack of form or whether it's an injury, that they'll be in the team. You know, because obviously, and now certainly when everybody's recognised or shown that they've recognised that they appreciate how they play, then it just makes them very comfortable, and that means a lot nowadays. It should do to footballers, where they've got that empathy with their teammates, empathy with the supporters, and of course an empathy with the management.
Yeah, we are now, of course, starting to look ahead to next season, and obviously it's been Friday when we're having this interview. Tonight, of course, sees the start of the National League playoffs. It seems a long time ago since it was announced that they were going to be taking place. Tonight we've got Boreham Wood against Halifax, and that's going to be followed tomorrow by Yeovil against Barnet. Both are going to be one-legged affairs, with the winners taking on Harrogate and Notts County respectively. Do you have any particular thoughts on those matches going? I mean, tonight's one with Boreham Wood and Halifax is particularly interesting, of course, because your own side beat both of those teams twice during the regular season.
Yeah, thanks for telling and reminding everybody of that. You know, we got quite close to those sort of teams that are at the top there, but on occasions. But I think it's very difficult to predict because we don't know how teams are going to have coped with the break and whether they've been able to train enough. You know, where it's just how the boys feel. So it really will be on the day whether a team has done exactly the right preparations. The lads are absolutely ready. They can handle playing with no crowds because you know, they won't know that yet because they wouldn't have done that. Only probably a few practice games amongst themselves. I know that Yeovil have kept their players actually living in the stadium for 3 weeks, and you know they've all been self-isolating in their own bubble. Now that could be a big plus, or it could be a minus because they're all fed up with each other already, sort of thing. But you know, so people have prepared differently, and you know, you can't call it. You definitely can't call it, and it will be, you know, how things go on the day, and then you can look back to say, well, we prepared right, but we just wasn't good enough, or we prepared right and we've got our promotion. You know, so you'll only be able to evaluate what you've done, you know, when you know that you've got promotion or not.
Yeah, because it's been said many times before, Gary, isn't it, that the season leading up to the playoffs sometimes doesn't count for anything. It's just about these individual matches. But like you've just said, never before has it been more so that it's all about who handles this situation, this individual, unique situation the best, isn't it?
It is, exactly. And, you know, they would have thought about it because the prize is big. You know, it's going into the Football League and the extra finances that you get if you when you get, you know, back into the Football League, and then the parachute payments if you ended up dropping out. It's like a nice insurance for you. So, but it will be very sad for the other, is it 5 teams that won't make it, because you know, only one team's going to go up out of all those teams. So the other teams are going to be really disappointed that they spent a lot of money out in preparing for the playoffs, which obviously with the testing and all that sort of thing and the other things that go with it, the protocol of making sure your stadium's safe, of, you know, not necessarily not for the crowds, but just for each other, so that none of the players end up having the coronavirus, you know, going into any of these games. Because also that's going to be important, how these teams cope with the playoffs and how they come out of it, as to whether we start at the same time as everyone else. Now, what I do know is that all the teams that are in the playoffs have really, really worked hard with their stadiums and with their protocol and with their safety measures. So, you know, that's good, because that will be good for all the other teams, and it'll help us make sure that we come back sooner rather than later.
I mean, it could be argued that there's a disadvantage if you get to the playoffs and you don't go up. You're one of the 5 that don't go up. You haven't got a lot of time to get your head around that before the next season starts. I mean, it's always disappointing for any teams that lose out in the playoffs. But you do normally at least have that summer break to get over that hangover, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's totally new. It's unprecedented, and so nobody knows the formula of making sure that you're absolutely ready. So therefore, you've really got to just make sure as a manager with these players that they're fit. You know, that's the one thing you can do. And then mentally, they've got to believe in what they're doing. And it's that mental state that will definitely get them through. Yes, you need a little bit of lady luck on the day maybe, but it'll be that mental state of how the group have coped with not playing for a little while and then go straight in to these massive playoff games.
We've also been hearing about 2 possible sets of dates for the restart of the National League season to coincide with the EFL. The 2 dates that are being mooted out in the media at the moment are August the 29th and 30th, and then in mid-September, the 12th and 13th. Understand that mid-September is more likely. Is that how you see it, Gary?
Yeah, we've always seen it that way. Dom, if you look back over our video sessions, then we've always sort of said 1st of August coming back pre-season, and middle of September the start of the games. And I think that's what the Football League and the Premier League want, if they can, and that they've always had thoughts about crowds coming in at that time. Now, whether that's full stadiums or whether it's, you know, for our lower league teams, whether it's a percentage of your stadium's capacity, we don't know yet. You know, that hasn't been told to us. So, as I said before, you know, we're working very hard as a club. You know, people that run the club are working hard to make sure that everything's going to be right the minute they give us a date where we can start playing games at Plainmoor.
And if we are looking, you know, fingers crossed, at a mid-September date, that still very much coincides with the date you've been talking about for the return for training at the beginning of August, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we know that our training ground is ready for us, ready and waiting. Actually, we haven't seen it for a long, long time because of the weather that we had, you know, all the rain that we had, and we wasn't able to train up there. So we trained on the South Devon Cottage AstroTurf for most days, nearly every day in the 2 months before the break. So, yeah, so we're looking forward to getting back to the training ground. So we know that's ready. And I think you were the one that told me that you've seen the pitch firsthand, that that looks ready as well for any pre-season games we might have in early August.
Yeah, so just hang in there a little bit longer, Yellow Army. Hopefully things are going to start moving very, very quickly now.
Yeah.
Now, of course, on the international front, last week, of course, in any other year, would normally have seen the closure of the Euro 2020 tournament. We would have been hoping that England and Gareth Southgate's men would have been involved in the final. Of course, none of that has taken place this year for obvious reasons. We did have the news this week, though. They've got a little bit of consolation. England will be playing Wales at Wembley behind closed doors in an international fixture in October. And of course, Gary, you were an international manager yourself back at the 1999-2001. How did you find it being an international manager in charge of Latvia?
Well, I enjoyed it very much. It wasn't just that you as an international manager looking after basically a pretty small country, Eastern European country. It was the experience that was going to be gained from not just looking after that group of Latvian, where a whole country relies, the hopes and dreams of the country are on your shoulders. But I was going to have the experience of playing against some top international teams. We played Belgium, Scotland, Croatia. Went to places like Azerbaijan and San Marino. It was just a magnificent and a magnificent experience for me. And looking back on it, although it took a long chat with my wife to say that, you know, I'm off to Latvia, that it was the right decision, 100% for my career, just, you know, for your own experience, and for that, and for the fact that you've picked up so much. I mean, I was in Japan for the 2002 draw, so, you know, little things like that. And I actually took one of the Latvian teams into Europe to play a Hungarian team. This was a club team, Ventspils it was in Latvia. And so, you know, the whole experience was just fantastic. And I had a 2-year contract, and you know, that 2 years was a real enjoyable footballing 2 years. And even when my wife came over to Riga, she realised, you know, it was a little bit better than she might have thought.
It was such an exciting period there, wasn't it? It was a real golden age for Latvian footballers. I mean, we look at the likes of Marian Pahars, Andre Rubins, amongst the names that I can make a half-decent fist of pronouncing.
Yeah.
What are the main differences, though, between being a club manager and an international manager?
Well, I think the obvious one is that you haven't got the team, the international team, all week. You know, you have them for the build-up of games, but you haven't got them all week, every week. And it was so important for me. There was 10 teams in Latvia's highest division, and I had to go around all the divisions when I first went there and say, look, if you want your player to play in my national team and play in the World Cup and the European Championships, then you're going to need to understand how I'm going to want to play, because they were still playing with a sweeper. Every team was playing with a sweeper at that time, and there was not too many countries that were still playing with a sweeper. So I had to sort of change the mentality of the teams if they wanted to, and some changed and some didn't. Fortunately, I could work with 80% of the players, because the best players all played for Skonto Riga, who were the main team. So I then attached myself to Skonto Riga, because the manager at Skonto Riga was my assistant for the national team, which was Andy, and the main man, the head of the Latvian Football Federation, was also the owner of Skonto Riga. So actually, I had the best of all worlds, because I was able to, you know, work with them, be around them most of the time in our build up to our national team games. So, you know, it was normally the difference is the managers don't have much time with their players before games, but I could sort of work with them individually and as a group, because, you know, they was all near enough at the same club. So it was perfect situation.
Well, it was a very, very interesting period, and I'm sure as the Yellow Army can appreciate, it's very unusual for any Torquay United manager to have managed on the international scene. And we will be running a feature on our website over the website regarding that, so do keep an eye out for that. We've also had some excellent contributions from the Yellow Army again this week, Gaffer. So we've got some questions here for you.
Okay.
The first one here is from Matt Scott. Thanks for getting in touch with us, Matt. It says here, what do you love most about Torquay United? Can we get to League Two? And if we do, can we sustain it?
Wow. Well, I think what initially you think of, or I do, before I join a football club, is that has it got potential? Has it got the scope to be successful? Because then your life's a little bit easier, because, you know, you're not trying to drag somebody up to a level that they can't sustain. And so that's a good word that Matt used there, because I'm trying to build a team at Torquay that can sustain. If we're good enough and lucky enough and clever enough to get back into the league, then I'm building a team that I think would definitely compete in the second division. There's not a great deal of difference between the top half of the National League and the second division. I'm sure, you know, any team that goes up into the second division generally does okay. You know, and I'm sure that Barrow and whoever else goes up will also do okay. So it's you know, it's one of those things that if you can get somewhere, and Torquay, which is why I was interested in Torquay when they asked me, is that I just felt 14th Torquay United in the South, in the Conference South, that there's got to be room for improvement. You know, at that time, and obviously we proved that. We didn't really get a great chance or a great bit of luck last year to prove that we could go on again. But I've improved the team again this year, and you know, I don't know what other questions you've got, but I'm going to try and get a group that is even more strong than last season. And that's how you have to keep building. And Torquay's got the structure now from the top to the bottom to allow us to have every opportunity to do that. And so long as we can start and it doesn't suddenly end in winter or something because of the virus. But, you know, I think that the odds are that if we get started in and around September, we should be able to get through the season again with a bit of luck.
All sounds very encouraging. I'm sure Matt will agree with that one. Next up is Joseph Pope, who's a regular contributor. So hi again, Joseph. When asked how your week was, you always say it's very busy. But what does an average week in both the close season and the season itself look like for the Gaffers? It's an interesting question there from Joseph.
Yeah. Well, again, we're not talking about normal close season at this point, or even a normal season, because we were 10 games short, and it works out lovely. You work really hard for 8 or 9 months, and then you get a couple of months off where you can go abroad and relax and take it easy for a few weeks, and then you come back and you get going on, you know, speaking to players. You might meet players on holiday, which I have done on occasions, and signed them in a lift. One player in particular, but she'll remain nameless. You know, you've gone up in a lift and you have a chat, and then you meet by the pool at lunchtime. But that obviously has been different this year because the timings are all different. So we've had a lot longer close season, and so at the start of when this season ended, we knew it was probably going to be quite a long time, and probably no football was going to be played for a little while. So I tended to do all my home jobs, get all them out of the way, you know, my fence and all sorts of things, you know, clearing out the drawers. I mean, I've found so many things. I've got a football room here, and you know, I've found things that I never knew I had. And obviously, you go over old memories and lots of videos and DVDs from previous games and that. But there comes a time, and that's probably 2 or 3 weeks after we'd finished this season in March, was it? When you start thinking, right, we need to start getting a list together. You know, we knew that we were going to lose a couple of players, and we need to replace them. As it goes on, you create a list. A couple drop out for whatever reason. You know, if you, as we said before, if you might have players that are up, you know, more experienced players that don't want to move down at Torquay. We've talked about that before, and obviously those players are financially better off. You know, they've been probably earned more money at bigger clubs on occasion. So you're deciphering all the players that you've got on your list, and then it sort of tapers down. And I can honestly say that we've been very fortunate this year that as we sit now, that, you know, we've got 4 or 5 players now that have 5 players that have committed themselves to us, and one more player that we're discussing things with, that we're pretty sure that you know, he will join us. So it's a nice little situation we've got ourselves into, nice and early, and that's because we started early. Although people don't make decisions early sometimes, others, you know, the players like to leave their options open sometimes. Clubs like to leave their options open sometimes. But as we sit now, we're really pleased with what we're going to be bringing into the club. And I think we'll be able to probably mention it probably middle of next week sometime, when we feel that we'll probably know the start date within the next 7 days or so, you know, and then when you get a start date, then you can start putting players on contracts in the National League from probably that 1st of August date.
Superb. Well, I certainly am looking forward to keeping myself busy by announcing all of those. I mean, Gary, is there ever a situation where there's a top quality player, someone that you've maybe always wanted to get, but they're not willing to commit by moving down here? Is there ever a way around that at all?
Not really. No, there isn't. It's if you've got a club in Birmingham, for instance, you know, you bring in more. There's more chimney pots around Birmingham and Liverpool, and you know, again, we've talked about this, and so sometimes you're unlucky that somebody just doesn't want to come, you know, south of Birmingham, if you like, if they're up north. But also you get sometimes a lucky situation where somebody says, do you know what, I fancy coming down to Torquay. I need a bit of a break from London or whatever. The problem is if it's a family, you know, and as we've said before, the kids are at school and things, so, and they don't want to take them out of school, etc. So therefore we tend to get the young lads that are sort of not married yet, that want to come to a place where they might know me already. I always ask them to do their homework on me, always do the homework on the club, because you want them to be looking forward to coming down and making the decision that they're coming for the right reasons. And, you know, so they know how we play. We'll send them videos, we'll send them our philosophy. This is when it gets very close. We don't just send that out willy-nilly. And as I say, and in the end, you know, if you end up with players that you're really pleased that you've got, then, you know, you've done your job. And I think we've done a good job. And, you know, when it comes out, you know, it's not going to suddenly be household names that everybody knows and they all go, whoa, you know, because we're not going to get them just yet. But we will get players that will compete at this level and the next one, at least.
Great. So in a case of watch this space, Yellow Army. And the final question this week comes from Tim Discombe. And he's talking about the strengthening of the squad, actually. And he's saying about, for the team this season, are you going to be looking to add experience to the spine of the team? And the positions he mentions here are centre-back, central midfield, central striker. I suppose it could be argued that we've got a very experienced central midfielder in our captain, Asa Hall. But your thoughts on that, Gary?
Yeah, I understand the question, and it's a good question, because there's two things. One is our young group last year that I gave the opportunity, because most of them brought us up into the National League. I gave them the opportunity to prove themselves at National League level. So they've actually gained a year's experience at this level, which is great. I agree, there were times when we looked naive in some games and we looked young, and we probably needed a few older heads around the team just to give the older experienced advice to some of the younger lads on how to cope in adversity, if you like, while they're on the pitch. So we have made an effort to bring in, out of those 5 players that I've said we've already agreed to, then at least 3 of them are very experienced, you know. So I agree with the questionnaire. What was the fellow's name again?
Tim Discombe.
Who? Tim
Discombe.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know whether Tim wants more experience, but we are getting it, and I think that's why I think it will make us stronger through the season, because you'll have 6 captains, you know, on the pitch. I mean, of course, remembering we've already got Carl Cameron, who's got much more experience now, who's assistant captain, if you like. Obviously, you said Ace of all. We've got Liam Davis, Lucas. These are all people that are mid-20s, early 30s, and we just want to add to that a little bit of youth and enthusiasm in these 6 that are coming in, and certainly a good bit of experience, which I'm really pleased about as well.
Well, great question there, Tim. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a question that would be of great interest to the Yellow Army watching as well. Well, that wraps things up again for another week. Thank you for your contributions, Yellow Army, and obviously thank you to Gary Johnson for joining us again today. We'll part, as we always do now. It's becoming very, very familiar. Take care, keep safe, and hopefully we'll speak to you again very, very soon.
I hope to see you very, very soon as well. So keep your fingers crossed, as you quite rightly say. Thank you.